morning, YouTube. You're watching Brian with BB's Vlogs and Adventures. I know it's been a minute or two since I've last posted a video. I never said that I was ever going to post a video every time I was off of work, every time I've taken off of work, nor have I ever said that I was going to do it every day, all the time. I don't understand why some people can give me, I don't know, a little bit of scrutiny because I'm not putting them up as much as I was. Some things come up, some things a little bit more intriguing for me. All I can say is I haven't given up, I've just slowed down. Some of it has to do with my adventure content, kind of running low after the Arlington history thing. So I'm kind of on the same lines of right now as going with doing the history of Hurst for you all. And I think we can actually do Hurst pretty quick in a couple of videos. So that's what we're going to try to end up doing. So let's get started with the City of Hurst and go through the timeline and make a video of that. I do want to say that I wanted to make this video in San Antonio. I've been waiting for that because I promised that I will go to the Crockett Hotel. It has gotten a little bit cooler and I would have went this time. Something came up though, and I'm not liking the fact that something came up whenever I have plans. But I promise one thing, these plans that step in my way are going to stop. So off we go. Let's go get started on some history that we already know to get into the history of Hurst. Been watching my videos, you would know that this is nothing new to any of us. This is the Village Creek area that I started with whenever we were doing the Arlington series. On May 21st, 1841, General Edward H. Tarrant led 69 volunteers at the Battle of Village Creek, where we are today. See in the back of me? This is where they all camped, a little bit further out in that area. But General Edward Tarrant led 69 volunteers at the Battle of Village Creek against the Caddo, the Cherokee, the Tonkawa, the Caddo, Cherokee, and Tonkawa tribes, opening the region for further settlement upon European colonizers. So this is where we begin. August of 1841, General Tarrant ordered a military outpost, which is behind me, Bird's Fort. I've done a couple of videos on Bird's Fort. You should go watch them if you haven't seen them. The fort was built near Village Creek, which I think is up here. The reasoning why I think that is because if Indians were to try to go up that hill, the momentum of their horses would be slower than going downhill. Hope that makes a little bit of sense. And that is a very steep hill. They called this place Bird's Fort, named for a man by the name of Jonathan Bird. And that's why we call it Bird's Fort today. It's built south of Euless. So Euless is going to be north, which is that way. And then it was abandoned in answer to the threat of a Comanche reprisal. As I stand here and walk around this peace circle, the original peace circle, because I have seen one that is built for this out in Colleyville. So in September of 1843, a treaty was signed by Sam Houston, General H. Tarrant, Ed Terrell, and several Indian tribes in the area. First the Caddo, then Anadarko, Biloxi, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Delaware, Hyena, Keechah, Tawakoni, Waco, and others. And then Bird's Fort was reestablished. December the 20th, 1849. Tarrant County was created from Navarro County, named for General H. Tarrant. He was an Indian fighter, a hero of the Mexican War, and a member of Texas Congress. Birdville, which is part of the Haltom North Richland Hills School District, which is Birdville, named after Jonathan Byrd, which is at the site where I stand today at Haltom High School, was named the first county seat. August of 1850, the first county election was held in a log cabin at Birdville. So you may be asking, Brian, I thought we were doing the history of Hurst. We are doing the timeline of the history of Hurst. What that kind of means is I am reading off what history writes to us. Now, is there going to be a twist? Maybe not on this video, but that's why we do the history of these cities, is to find out what it is that we are being told in written history. We're not trying to rewrite history. If history is correct, history is correct. And I do think that most of the things that I've read on here are correct. I just have no evidence to show. With that said, you want to go to Hurst? Let's go to Hurst. In 1853, Isaac Parker built a log cabin on land in the southwest corner of the present-day City of Hurst. It was south of 183. 183 is that way, which is north of us, so this would be south now. And across the railroad tracks, which I just showed a picture of. So I am assuming that this is the area that he would have had to probably have built some kind of log cabin. This is part of the Trinity River right here that you see. This is one of the forks that is part of the river bottoms. So I kind of wonder if his log cabin was built somewhere like in the woods, right? It could be right here, but this would be a source of water back in 1853. That name is his niece. Was captured in May of 1836 by Comanche and Kiowa Indians from a fort near the present-day town of Groesbeck. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not going to Groesbeck. That's quite a ways away, and I've already been going from Arlington to start this out. There's no reason to, from what I've read through this, before I actually determined that I was going to do this. Anyways, Cynthia, after being recaptured from the Indians in 1860, she and her little daughter, Prairie Flower, it's a pretty name for a girl, were returned to relatives at Isaac Park's land, or then farm. I can see this is a farm. Cynthia had died of grief in East Texas in 1864, meaning she probably went back around to Groesbeck. November of 1856, this building here behind me, it used to be a log cabin here. Fort Worth had made a seat for Tarrant County. Fort Worth is said to have won the election, but right here in this building that used to be a log cabin that took votes were later known to be 3 illegal votes, which would have meant an even landslide. In 1857, Randall Mill built south of Hurst on the Trinity River. and was operated by R.A. Randall until 1916, right where I'm standing. As you saw, the street sign. More to come on this one. In 1865, a man by the name of Daniel Arwine came to Texas from Indiana. In 1879, he needed a school, a church, and a cemetery. The school was named after Red Sulphur Spring. Then he named it the Arwine School, now Bel Air Elementary, which was the first school in the area. In 1866, Isham's Chapel Methodist Church was founded and now named the First Methodist Church of Hurst, about a mile north of Highway 183. This is where Hurst first settled. So in 1870, William L. Hurst came from Horse Show Bend, Tennessee, with his wife and 7 children. He first settled in Grapevine, then Bedford, finally here in Hurst, just about a mile north of Highway 183. And this is where Hurst began. Now I'm going to turn the camera around real quick because I want to show everyone something. In one of my next videos, I'm going to come around and show you guys some things I want you guys to see. I want you to remember this. See that way? See all this build-up, construction that they got going. I also want to freaking show this right here. So now that y'all all seen that, let's flip over to the next part. Rock Island Line was built through on a land donated by William Hurst in exchange for the establishment of a depot named for him, calling it the Hurst Train Depot establishment, which would have been where I am standing. In 1909, the community's name changed from Ormel to Hurst. In the 1900s to the 1920s, sand and gravel excavation took place in the Trinity River bottoms. Tell me that don't look like the bottom of like the Trinity River. That's why they call this the Trinity River bottoms. In 1949, the first post office for Hurst, Texas. In 1950, the population of Hurst was 200. 1951, there was groundbreaking ceremonies for the Bell helicopter plant right across the street from where I'm standing there. More to come on this one. On September 25th, 1952, the city's population boomed to 2,500. So it's a new day, and I got to keep continuing to do this video because I'm not done. I thought I would just run through this video, but apparently I was wrong. But today, starting with a new day, let's start where we left off yesterday. In 1955, the Hurst and Euless school districts merged. Then following that, in 1858, Bedford joined in. In 1956, city charter adopted a home rule government that increased the population to 5,700. In 1960, just 4 years later, Hurst seen a population boom again to 10,165. In 1968, Hurst opens up the Tarrant County Junior College, which recently in this decade they have dropped the J because they don't want to make it sound like a junior college. It is called now Tarrant County College. In 1972, Northeast Mall opens. January 13th, 1974, Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport opens. In 1980, the population boomed to 31,420. In 1990, the population increased to 33,574. Fun fact, 7 of the 33,574 were my mama, my daddy, my brother, me, my sister, my grandmother, my grandfather, within 2 houses. In the year of 2000, the Trinity Railway Express, the TRE, began running between Fort Worth and Dallas and stops at the Bell Station in Hurst. And since then, the population had increased to 36,273. Oh, okay. Since 2010 till we currently sit here today, Hurst has boomed to 40,143 as a population, as a consensus of 7/18 yesterday morning. Since the 1990s, Hurst has grown over 5 plus 3 is 8%. And since the first 5 years of this decade, Hurst has grown about 5%. So this is my conclusion on the timeline of Hurst. I know some of this can be a little bit boring. That's the reason why I try to take a little bit of extra steps in taking pictures and setting the scene in different places. But we have more on Hurst, and it gets a little bit more interesting as we go. The timeline is just something that you have to know if you're going to go about telling the story of that certain city you want to talk about in your state, metroplex, wherever you may live. So I will say this, I know it's been a while since you heard me ask. I would muchly appreciate it, and it would mean the world to me if you subscribe to my channel, like that video, share the video, and feel free to leave a comment down below. I think I'm going to do a Randall Knott video next. We'll see. But there's going to be another one. Stay tuned.